So may I invite Professor Xuetong to kindly make his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Gupta, and for this very good opportunity to exchange views with these distinguished guests about the possible change in the East Asia. Well, I should say, after the collapse of Soviet Union in 1991, most countries, including China, predict that the world is moving into the age of multipolarization. We have been talking about the multipolarization for more than 2 decades. But today, for me, I think it's a little bit pity that we cannot see any signs for multipolarization. And whenever people read the question to Kissinger about the multipolarization and use the EU as a polar for the future, and Kissinger always question that, can you get me a telephone code for EU? So that means you cannot use an international organization as a polar or as a reference to judge the change of the trend of the geopolitical change in the world. And so when we're talking about the international configuration, we're actually talking about the change in power of major powers, the major countries, it means. So in the next 10 years, it seems to me we can hardly to see 3 superpowers in the world. And in the next 10 years, and it's possible we have the US as the strongest superpower, and China possibly become the secondary superpower. Besides these 2 countries, we can hardly to see any country become the 3rd superpower within 10 years. Some people say, hey, this is too short view, and you didn't look at the future in the long way. Well, if we look at the future in limited time, then you cannot make any judgment. No one knows what happened in 1,000 years. No one knows what will happen in 100 years. So from my understanding, and for the scholars at this moment, and if we can make the prediction in consistent with the objective of life, maybe 10 years is long enough. So by now we find that most of predictions over 20 years can hardly to be proved by history, usually to defalsified by the history. Well, why the Chinese government advocating for multipolarization? With the Deng Xiaoping's doctrine, keeping low profile, China do not want to be the only country regarded by US like a challenger. So China concerned that if the world moves in the direction of multipolarization, and China just one of them, so the US have to dealing with all of the many other powers. So like people said, and some a group of countries rising up. So that's what China looking for. Unfortunately, the international configuration are not changed in the way people expected. The international configuration only change along with the objective difference of the power among the major countries. So the uneven development, regarded as a law for political scientists, it decided the direction of the international configuration. The change of international configuration is not decided by politicians' policy. Well, and U.S. and in 1990s and all the early period of this century, and the U.S. do focus their strategy in Middle East. For China, concerned that it's a kind of a favorable situation, because if U.S. focus its strategy in the Middle East, and the U.S. will use less energy to prevent China from rising up. Unfortunately, the objective change of the international configuration make U.S. realize that, and China is objectively a challenger. No matter China, what policy China adopted, and China is a competitor with the U.S. for the market, with the U.S. for the investment, and with the U.S. for the technology development. So this kind of, even in the Olympic game, the question is not whether you like it or not. The question is not whether China wants to challenge or not. No Chinese leaders dare to tell our sports guys or these boys, tell, hey, don't win the game when you have a competition with the U.S. athletes as Olympic game. No one dare to. I don't think anyone dare to forbidden our boys and girls to win the gold medal. So this regarded as a challenge, and the U.S. have been dominated the largest number of gold medal of Olympic game after since 1992. The U.S., the Russia, and the other former Soviet Union republicans and win the most gold medal in the Olympic game jointly in 1992. After that, U.S. dominating that position. Unfortunately, now U.S. have a challenger. That means China. So it means that this conflict between China and the U.S. is inevitable. That's why we call it. It's a structural contradiction. So bipolarization means the structural contradiction between China and the U.S. will become deeper and deeper, rather than becomes less serious. Well, that's why the U.S., the Obama administration decided to so-called the pivot, decided to adopt the pivot strategy or the rebalance strategy. The question is very clear. Rebalance who? Rebalance China, not rebalance anyone else. Well, this bipolarization, from my understanding, do not only have impact on China and the U.S. relationship, will have an impact on the relationship with many countries who have a relationship with these two countries. I do not mean that bipolarization will force other countries to take sides, but it will force all of these countries make their own decision, adjust their own policy according to this trend of bipolarization. From my understanding, most of the major countries decided try to keep the balance between China and the U.S. Germany, UK, France, and including India and Brazil, most of the countries think that's the right strategy to maintain the balance between these two powers, and then they can get the largest benefits rather than side with any of them. And Japan is an exception. I think I should return my language. It's not Japan. It's Abe's government. Actually, before and after the Koizumi, and some Japanese leaders realized that, and during the coming bipolarization, taking the balanced strategy is favorable for their own national interests, rather than they take a side. Unfortunately, Abe adopted the opposite strategy. He concerned that during the process of bipolarization, take a confronting policy against China, side with the U.S. is in favor of the Japanese interests. And here I would say, and from my understanding, this is a wrong judgment. And just now we heard that Mr. Yanan and make a statement, judge that China's foreign policy was driven by national interests. Well, I think this statement is so correct that no any other countries, no any major powers of foreign policy were not driven by national interests. How about India? I don't think any Indian leaders dare to tell your people, okay, our foreign policy is to serve others' interests, not Indians' interests. I don't think the Japanese leader, American leader, any national leader, any major powers leader dare to tell the people the foreign policy is not aimed at to serve their own interests. Well, here I mean, it's not wrong for IDSA government to concern to develop the policy serve their interests. The question is that confronting policy against China is serving Japanese interests or not, or damage Japanese policy. That will be concerned by the Japanese policymakers, not China. Well, here people may argue that if when China tried to adopt a policy under the title "New Model of a Major Power Relations" between China and the U.S., some people argue that, hey, why China only adopt this policy for the U.S., not the others? I want to be very frank with you, because new model of major power relations means a competition. It doesn't mean a cooperation. It's certainly better than China-Japan relationship, because current China-Japan relationship is a confrontation, the worse than the new model of major power relations. But our relationship with Russia, with India, is much better than the new model of the major power relations. If anyone want to have that new model of the major relations, that means you want to have a competition with China rather than want the cooperation with China. So that's your own decision. So why? And the Obama administration finally accepted this idea. Xi Jinping suggested this idea in 2011. And the Obama administration formally accepted this idea last year when Susan Rice delivered a speech and formally said that, and the U.S. will prepared to operationalize the new model of the major power relationship. For what? For my understanding, it's not the purpose that prevent the competition between China and the U.S. escalating into military conflicts. The purpose to make this competition is peaceful. The purpose or the desire is to make the competition be benefiting to other countries. So the term is called healthy competition, and this term already accepted by Xi Jinping and Vice President Biden. Well, and here I want to see, I think I have 2 minutes, right? Okay, I want to see, people certainly worry about the China and the Japan's relationship, and for me, I'm also worried about the China and Japan relationship. I do not worry about the Japan's capability. I do not worry about IDSA policy to increase its metal budget. I only worry about its ideology. Ideology is the source, is the cause of the confrontation for Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Ideology conflicts and caused the war in the Arab states, and the religious ideology caused the civil war in Syria, and making many people lost their life. Here I want to see, and the IDSA ideology is dangerous. It's already make Japan. There's a lot of things I don't want to list about visit Yasukuni Shrine and defense the comfort of women system policy, and deny the war crime during the World War II, and many things. And here actually all of these things represent his ideology. It's a kind of ideological change, and this already becomes very dangerous, or as dangerous as a nuclear program in North Korea. So nowadays, the East Asia actually faces two threats. One is the nuclear issue in North Korea. The second is the ideological change in Abe's government. Finally, I want to rise up. Is that really the danger of war between China and Japan? I don't think so. And even Abe himself, 4 days ago, he said that he don't think that China and Japan can manage this conflict. He means from escalating into military clashes. Why he has this confidence, and why I believe there's no danger of war? Because Japan, at this moment at least, do not have the right to launch a war. They need Americans' permission. Before America make a decision to go to nuclear war, I doubt Obama administration will allow the Abe's government to launch a war in this region to maintain its status. So after him, I think we will have chance to have China and Japan to improve the relationship. Japanese people are very rational. After 2 or 3 years competition or confrontation with China, and then they will realize that that strategy do not serve their interests. That strategy undermines their interests. So then we are going to have the chance. China and India, I may talk about that during the discussion, and just very simple. I think at least we are going to see dramatic improvement of our bilateral relationship this year, because Yang Jiechi's visit and a very recent visit lay a very solid condition for us to improve our relationship. Meanwhile, no matter policymakers like it or not, no matter policymakers do anything or not, China-Indian relationship will increase dramatically by itself. This economic relationship is not due to the policymakers in these two countries are taking a very benign policy towards each other, because of common interests, because of a shared interest. So the common interests created by globalization will make China and India inevitably improve their cooperation. Thank you. Thank you very much.